Hello and welcome to this video where we are going to take a look at making grooves in Cubase's Quantize panel. Now, typically we would normally quantize your MIDI data to a grid. So here we have all the typical musical divisions, and if you wanted to, you could also use the Quantize panel here, which is accessed with that little triangle. You could use that to add things such as swing and so on. So here you can see it's altering the position of the second of each pair of notes, so that adds a more human feel, something which has been discussed before. But sometimes you want to go further than that, and in this case what we're going to be doing is using some MIDI data from some classic drum machines. So this is some packs of MIDI data which has been harvested, I guess, from classic drum machines and sequencers, etc., by samples from Mars. So they're actually called grooves from Mars. There's a link in the description. This isn't funded or sponsored by them at all. It's just something that they've done on a free download at the moment, and I've used it and found it really brilliant, and I thought it would be a good idea to give people the ability to use that. So what I'm going to do is just set up a really simple, straightforward drum part. So this is definitely the kind of starting point a lot of people will start off with. So we're going to start off with 4 on the floor bass drum throughout, and then let's have a clap on beats 2 and 4, and then for the hi-hats we're just going to use the line tool, create those all the way through, and then with these last two make them open and maybe put in something a bit different. So here's the straightforward, simple sure you get the idea with that. So that's the kind of thing you can imagine, and it sounds really straight and not particularly exciting. So what we want to do is add something interesting to it. So we're going to do that by importing a MIDI groove in this case, but it could be any MIDI file, so any MIDI that you like the feel of, and then we're going to apply that to this part and look at some other tricks you can do with that as well. So by default, when you import a MIDI file in Cubase, it sets up a Hallian sonic and applies that all the program changes in there, which is really sensible, because most of the time when people are importing MIDI files, what they're importing is something with a general MIDI sound set that's a representation of a song, because MIDI files were really big in the kind of backing track thing back in the day, I'm going to say. So typically that's what it does. So I'm going to show you doing that, and it's slow and long-winded. Now, whenever you do import MIDI file, it asks if you want to create a new project, because often you would do, but we don't. We want to import it as a track in here. And then here I've gone to the Grooves from Mars folder. So you can see they're all arranged nicely, and then there are multiple sets for each one. So we're going to open up that and then just start off with the TR-808, because it's nice and simple. So it's got 8 triplets, 16 triplets and 16s. Our parts are 16, so we're going to load that up. So loading that up, it creates a Hallian sonic and then routes that to it. So in fact, if we play that on its own, we get this piano joy. So that's not what we want normally. So first thing I'm going to do is just set it to not connected, so it's not going to play. So if I play it now, we won't hear anything, which is what we want. But next time I import one, I'll show you how to stop all that fuss being created. So now what we want to do is we want to take a quick look at this, and we can see, if we zoom in, we see that it's it gets a bit excited. It's not as simple as just a straightforward swing or something like that, because some of the notes are a bit early, some of them are on time, and these are the characteristics of these machines. So this is what we want to apply to this. Now, doing that manually would be extremely long-winded and tedious, but fortunately we don't have to do that. So what you do is you open up the Quantize panel. So we see that there, and then we grab this MIDI file, or sorry, this part from the MIDI file, and then we drag it onto here. And now we've dragged that onto there, you can see that some of the settings have changed, because swing has been replaced by velocity, but most importantly, the groove of it has been captured. So now it's named here. We can save that if we want, and we can go to our drum part. So I'm going to open up the drum part so we see it as we do it. And then we can already see where we've set to this TR-808 groove that these notes will need to be moved forward. And now if we apply that, everything gets put there. The note lengths look a bit weird because obviously some of the notes are shorter than they would have been, some of them are too long, etc. And now when we play it, it's just a bit better, isn't it, really? So that's quite subtle, but it doesn't sound as rigid and metronomic as it was before because it's not. It's now got the groove of an 808 without the sound, although this is using the freeware cassette 808 drums, which I'd also recommend. They're really good for sort of workman-like performance. So that one's fairly straightforward, but it already adds a bit of life to it without it being something that stands out. Now let's look at importing a MIDI file without generating a Hallian sonic. So just to demonstrate that that's the case, I'm just going to get rid of the Hallian sonic here. So there's no, smoke and mirrors accusations. Right. So what you want to do is to go to preferences. So at the moment that is under file and preferences, although in later versions of Cubase that will change to edit and preferences. And then you go to MIDI and then MIDI file, and then you can change it here. So instead of it being Hallian sonic SE multi-timbral, just change it to MIDI tracks or instrument tracks. Often, actually, I find instrument tracks is quite useful because then it just creates a bunch of blank instrument tracks that you can use. So if you're importing a MIDI file that you do want to do something with all the tracks, you can do that. But I'm just going to set it to MIDI tracks because that's the lowest overhead there. I'm going to mute this, and then let's import something a little more interesting, should we say. So again, file, import MIDI file. No, not a new project. And let's load up something from the LM1. So let's go for this with 58 swing. So again, it's 16ths, but swing 58. And we can see that straight away, as soon as we look at that, we can see that's drastically different from what we had before. And some of the notes are early. So again, if we zoom in on this bar here, we can see early, late, on time, and so on. So there's all this variation in there. It's not just like, oh, you can replicate it with anything else. So we'll just, again, drag that onto there. You see it's analysed it, and now, again, we can apply that. I'll open that up so you see it move around, but you can already see that the bar points are in different positions. We hit Q, and now we get, just make sure this isn't going to play. Yeah, it's not. And then we get, so obviously loads of swing in there. And you can transform. I mean, obviously, this is completely transformed that from being that. So that's what it was before. And now it's this. With almost no effort at all. So using this is really important. So that's sort of phase one of this. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you how you can use it to apply velocity as well. But that's part one of this. So that's applying these grooves. And so you can use any MIDI data. So if you find something or you've programmed something you like the sound of, then you can apply that. But Grooves from Mars is fantastic because at the moment it's free. I'm not sure how long it will be free for, but say there's a link in the description. That all their products are worth checking out, but this is a really great way to just be able to apply these grooves and make your programming sound interesting, possibly vintage at the same time. Thanks for watching.